Okay, so real quick, I'm just going to do a close up and of the neck and do like with a little backing drum track. Try to do some repetitious phrases and sort of motivic development, and just to kind of get you in the frame of mind. Maybe this is the kind of thing you need to concentrate on for your jazz, blues, progression, improvisation. Okay, hopefully you kind of see what I'm hinting at there. Some pretty simple motivic content. We're kind of working on rhythmic patterns. Um, we're staying in the chord, but occasionally shifting out of the chords. That's really what you want to do is get into a mental groove where you could just nail that all day long. Little BB King. Um, you're right there, but it's just second nature. You play this so much that you've got the phrasing down, you got the feel, you got the note placement, the timing, and then from there work on how can I break out of that, and of course there's a few major ways of doing it. Chromaticism, extended chord tones that are based off of the altered dominance. Um, or you could just play stuff that's like a ladder lick that's totally unrelated. Like you're going like it's just basically like a good example of a ladder lick. This is kind of like the beginning of "Hot for Teacher" by Van Halen. This is not. I mean, Eddie Van Halen was like well known to be a big Clapton blues fan. Just in case anybody. This lick right here. You hear how bluesy that is? That's what I would consider to be a ladder lick. It's really fast, but it's just basically right down the strings, same pattern. It's just the same kind of deal. You know, it could be anything. Like whole tones can be a ladder lick. You know. So like you're in. Um, it could be anything. Like I sometimes I use just triads. You know, like things. It's all really about resolution and timing. How you achieve that, of course. But like I was doing in the first part of the video, the intro. It was the four chords, E flat. Well, in this particular instance, instead of playing an E flat 9 or E flat 7, I'm playing an E flat 7 sharp 9. Everybody knows, you know, the Hendrix. One of the interesting things you can do is what you're doing is it's the sharp 5 or the flat 6. Any way you want to look at this. The thing you got to keep in mind is that in E flat, you got this. In a 7 sharp 9 chord, you have this. What's essentially the beginnings of. And you can hear that, right? The B flat major relationship to the E flat. It's like you have B flat major. And it just kind of like you're hearing something go shift down. It gets kind of jazzified, you know, like substitute. Just it wants to go places. It wants to be resolved. You can hear resolved. It ain't resolved. It ain't resolved. You know, like it ain't resolved. Not quite. Ah, there we go. You can hear the relationship, but in the 4 chord there. So what's interesting here is these kind of little things you have to just think about and discover them for yourself. There's plenty of them, you know. So you're in B flat, right? I mean, of course, you hear how it sounds pretty hip, right? Like, but implementing it, right, is the key, is the hard part, because it's like, oh, you're playing along. Oh, time for your solo in improvisation class or whatever. And I gotta throw that in there. You know, that's not how you want to be thinking about things. You basically, when you're practicing anything in jazz, or I would say fusion or rock or anything, you want to exhaust your whole trip. I mean, like, you need to practice this stuff so much that it's like you don't have to think about it anymore. You want to have, for every moment that takes place, you want to have so many options that are in front of you that you don't know which one to pick, that you just basically, it's like spinning the wheel of fortune. Bam, I'm going to play that substitution triad right there. And that's the kind of mindset you want to have. It's like you can't make a mistake because there's so many things you've done over this. See what I'm saying? Like that's why a lot of times when I'm practicing, I don't play anything musical for a while. It's purely physical. It's like, I mean, I'll give you this is not musical at all, but like you know, like if I'm playing this, I'll go at a not reasonable tempo maybe, and maybe flub up, you know, and then keep repeating that over and over and over again until it becomes like, okay, it's harder to flub, you know, and just play what I would consider to be perpetual motion, right? So like if you're charts. Right? Like just silly, crazy, too many notes, too fast. That was still too fast. I mean, that's what you have to do, and just I think there's Wynton Marsalis is quoted somewhere saying that at faster tempos and things like playing like Coltrane charts, like Countdown or Giant Steps or something, you lose your personality because at those speeds, when you start getting above 250, 300 beats a minute playing swing stuff, bop, you really, I mean, you can't. What can you do? You have to basically rely on muscle memory and stuff that you've woodshedded. Because it's like at a slower tempo, you can kind of think of it tactically. You could sit there and go, I mean, I could play contrapuntal blues, like. You get the idea. Um, but at a faster tempo, you're locked in. There's in a sense fewer options unless you're some kind of damned super genius or something like. And you're gifted with so much technique that you shouldn't even be playing music. You should probably be like doing some other type of scientific work, right? But that's generally the gist of how it goes. But getting back on topic, so yeah, we've covered the basics of inside stuff. Now it's time to kind of like look at the outside of things a little bit and think about the different ways that we could reharmonize. Like you got your altered dominance 13, flat 9, which is really, you got your G major. Anyway, you could be writing a tune. It's like, like that kind of melody or something, is going on. And then, of course, when it comes time to solo, you're just conventional, But, if we're playing outside, I mean, a lot of people do this. I mean, this sounds stupid. It sounds like, all I did was just go up a half step. And I mean, think of it like this. It may not make a lot of sense in every particular case, but it depends on, again, the tension and release that you're employing. And you don't have to shift either. It's not like, oh, I'm up a half step, now I'm down. It can be more subtle than that, because you have to keep in mind if you're in B flat major and the difference between B flat major and B flat minor, it's like half and half of the scale is in major or is out. So like that's in, right? But if we're in minor, it still sounds cool, because of the blues notes, but technically speaking, half of that scale is out of harmony. It's not in the correct tonal center. Whereas if we shift the minor, that almost sounds totally out, but it still shares some of the tones from the major. You see? Which is pretty cool. I think you can hear that. So like if, and again, this is another thing that I do. Playing a dominant 7, altered 7. You can hear the how cool. I mean, that sounds in, you know. There's just an example of what I'm saying. Yeah. And again, that's piano players use this stuff a lot, and other fusion horn players, like people like Brecker, I've heard, you know, like people that played not just straight ahead jazz. I love straight ahead jazz. Okay, but I'm just saying a lot of the people that have done kind of really interesting things, you know, have been fusion artists. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the, you know, I love straight ahead jazz. Don't get me wrong. It's just a lot of it is the drumming style is like an outgrowth of bop drumming, which is awesome. It's amazing and great, and nothing in the world is like it. But in fusion, you might have Latin, funk, jazz, bop drumming, drum and bass, you know, like it could be anything, and world rhythms, Indian stuff, you know. I mean, I didn't even touch on that. I mean, there's you could do like a John McLaughlin type. Maybe I should do an example like that, just totally off the wall. Let's pretend Shakti, John McLaughlin, is playing blues progressions with weird extended harmony. Okay, so maybe that's a little bit too, you know, out there or something, but for our purposes, but you get the idea. The sky's the limit. Use your creativity. Try to, you know, I'm a proponent of the fusion way of thinking. Is anything can be jazz. Okay, my feeling is that anything can be jazz. Country can be jazz. You know what I mean? Like, you know, jazz. You know what I mean? Like anything can be. Any world music, you know, look at Zonal Syndicate. There you go. So just keep your ear open, Anytime you hear something applicable, reintegrate it, right? As far as the jazz blues approach, really the best thing to do is to find some players that you personally like. I don't know who that would be. I think one of the great players to listen to, not just as far as blues and jazz, but not necessarily jazz blues stuff, is Scott Henderson. Brilliant phrasing, tone, the whole nine yards. And of course all Tribal Tech. If you've never heard them, they're one of my favorite fusion groups. Scott Kinsey still doing stuff there. So is Scott Henderson, for that matter, and Gary Willis, the amazing fretless bass player. But just as far as players are concerned, yeah, I mean, it could be anybody. I mean, there's like Robin Ford. I mean, I could just keep naming names, like nonstop. Just do a cursory Google search, and you'll discover a plethora of content. But the key thing in this is to not get swept up in their whole trip. You have to have this vision in your mind of what it is you're trying to learn and why you want to learn it. And stick with that and just add to that vision whatever you come across in your musical journeys. And rather than get swept up into, here, I'm doing this whole thing, I'm trying to better my craft, and here I've watched this guy play acoustic guitar where he's doing all of this fancy, which that stuff's really great too. Okay, more power to you. That's awesome. It's amazing. But then very quickly you go from trying to hone your craft to, I'm going to buy an acoustic guitar and work on playing percussion on it. So like, don't let yourself get sidetracked into this other area unless you just want to abandon the whole thing altogether. Then by all means. But you get my point. But I think I'm just going to cut the video at that. And, I appreciate you watching. Probably going to make another one or few of these. I don't know what I'm going to do in the future. But hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe. And, of course, again, stay tuned for any future episodes. Later.